The Hunt for Gollum, Aragorn's Forgotten Quest. A discovery in the archives.
A librarian's quiet life holds many secrets. Sometimes, between reports on grape harvest taxes and birth registries, you stumble upon a fragment of a story that changes everything. That's what happened this time. While organizing the collections in the wing dedicated to the War of the Ring, I came across a laconic report. Year 3017, Strider, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, delivered a prisoner known as Gollum into the custody of King Thranduil in Mirkwood. That single sentence, dry and official, set my mind ablaze. How? Where? Why? What kind of hunt could it have been to capture a creature that had eluded even the vigilance of the elves and hidden for centuries in the world's deepest caves? To find the answers, I consulted all available scrolls, and finally, I requested an audience with His Majesty, King Elessar. Remembering my services in cataloging, he gladly agreed to share his memories. Today, I will combine this knowledge to tell you about the greatest tracking feat of the Third Age, the quest that gave hope a chance.
Gandalf's unease, the seed of suspicion.
To understand the hunt, we must understand its purpose. And this purpose was born in the mind of Gandalf the Grey, sprung from a disquiet that had gnawed at him for many long years. In his notes, which later found their way into our library, Gandalf justified the need for this mission thus. Much that he could have told was no doubt already known in the Dark Tower, but there was much else of which not even the Council of the Wise had yet conceived. Alas, there was little time for the questioning of Gollum, and less for learning the history of the ring. Yet enough was seen to give the wise a new anxiety and a last hope. Professor Tolkien himself, in a letter to Mrs. Elgar, explained it even more emphatically, showcasing the scale of the threat. Gandalf was the one who sent Aragorn in search of Gollum before he had even left the Shire. You see, this was no whim. It was a strategic, preemptive move. While Sauron sent forth his ringwraiths, the White Council had its own most excellent hunter. Gandalf realized that time was on the enemy's side. As he himself said at the Council of Elrond, "Too long have I hesitated. This hunt was an attempt to reclaim lost time."
The hunter and tracker, the uncrowned king in the shadows.
And who was our king back then? Not a crowned ruler, but a wanderer, a strider. But what a wanderer! Tolkien leaves no doubt about his skills. In the same letter he wrote, Aragorn was the greatest hunter and tracker of his time. There was no other person who knew every path, every stone, and every hiding place between Eriador and Mordor. This was not a matter of chance, but of necessity. Only he could undertake this challenge. His life in the wilderness, his constant wandering and struggle against the servants of shadow had made him the perfect instrument for this task. He was patient, enduring, and fearless. As the king once told me, "In those days my kingdom was the shadows, and my throne the bare ground."
The Prey, Gollum's tragic journey.
And who was the prey of this hunt? He was no ordinary enemy, but a tragic creature. Gollum. His journey, after leaving the misty mountain's cave, was that of a spirit torn by obsession. As the chronicles note, he reached as far as Mordor itself, where he was captured and dragged into the very Barad-dûr. It was there, in the very heart of darkness, that he was subjected to unimaginable tortures. And it was there, in a moment of ultimate weakness, that he revealed the most terrible secret. Gandalf reports this with horror. The Dark Lord had then learned that the One was found, that it was long in the Shire, and that a hobbit, Bilbo, had possessed it. Sauron, in his cunning, did not kill him. He released him, like one sets a hound loose, to lead the hunters straight to the quarry, Sauron's hunters. He did not foresee, however, that another, far more effective hunter was already waiting on that same path.
The Hunt on the Edge of Peril.
When I asked the king about the hunt itself, his voice grew solemn, full of the echo of that weariness. "Radagast," he said, "it was not a hunt as you know it from tales. It was the tracking of a shadow. His trail was faint, a footprint in the mud, spittle on a stone, remnants of a raw fish. I knew he was terrified, sick, and dangerous. I felt the breath of Mordor on my neck. His servants were searching for him, too. Sometimes I found the tracks of orcs following the same trail. It was a race I could not afford to lose. At night, I could hear his whimpers somewhere in the darkness. He was like a ghost, materializing only to vanish again. And where was it all decided? The professor, in a letter to his son Christopher, pinpoints the location with military precision. Aragorn, as Strider, undertook the dangerous pursuit of Gollum in the Dead Marshes, near the borders of Mordor. The king recalled those fens as a place full of ghosts and despair, where the pale faces of the dead stared out from the cold waters. It was there, on the threshold of the Black Gate, after months of pursuit, that he finally ran his quarry to ground. He described how Gollum was emaciated then, almost translucent from hunger and fear, but with a wild, feral fury still burning in his eyes. Capturing him, alone in that accursed place, required not just strength and agility, but immense pity. It would have been easier to kill him, but Gandalf's order was clear: take him alive.
The Long Road to Captivity, Prisoner and Keeper.
But the capture was only the beginning of a new, perhaps even heavier ordeal. Now Aragorn had to transport this dangerous, unpredictable prisoner hundreds of miles through the wilds to Mirkwood. The king described this as the most arduous part of the journey, a test of patience and humanity. I bound him at night, but he scarcely slept, he recalled. He whispered, complained, cursed me in his strange tongue. He spoke to his precious. I could feel his madness, that constant war between Smeargol and Gollum trying to invade my own mind. I had to be his guard, his jailer, and his physician, all in one. I fed him, for he was starved. I watched him so he would not hang himself with his own chain. There were moments, looking at that pitiful, twisted creature, torn apart by the obsession that had ruined his life, that I felt not anger, but a deep pity and a dread, for I saw in him a reflection of the darkness the ring could sow in any heart. That journey through Ravonion is a monument not only to Aragorn's endurance, but also to his compassion. His destination was the dungeons of Thranduil, the only place that could hold Gollum. As Tolkien noted, there he was kept in prison, but not in torment, and the elves learned what they could from him, though even their wisdom could not heal the wounds in his spirit.
The interrogation and the fruit of labor, the gift of certainty.
And so Gollum was placed under the guard of the elves. And then Gandalf arrived. And this was the moment when all that heroic months-long effort bore its fruit. The wizard's wisdom and the information wrung from Gollum gave the light of the free peoples a crucial weapon: certainty. Gandalf later reported, "I learned that I had been right, too right to fear. I saw the ring of the enemy. At once I saw the dark things that he had seen, and I guessed much of what he had done. Herein lies the key: certainty. Without this certainty, would Gandalf have dared to send Frodo from the Shire with such urgency? Would the Council of Elrond have reached any decisive conclusion? Or would it have sunk into further years of debate? Everything would have begun too late. Sauron was moving from the shadows, and we would still have been mired in doubt. Aragorn's mission gave us time, which proved to be priceless. It gave us the knowledge that allowed us to act."
Conclusion: an achievement of the first rank.
When we think of the War of the Ring, our minds conjure great battles on the Pelennor fields, the grim visage of the Black Gate, or the final struggle upon Orodruin. Yet this war was also won in silence and solitude. In the Dead Marshes, where one man captured one pitiful creature. In the elven dungeons, where an old wizard asked patient questions. And in the heart of that wizard, who finally gained the certainty that scattered the shadow of doubt. Professor Tolkien, in Letter 81, called Aragorn's deed an achievement of the first rank, and he was absolutely right. Sometimes the greatest heroism lies not in slaying a dragon, leading an army, or storming a fortress. It lies in sparing, against all instinct, one whom the world has deemed unworthy of pity. It lies in listening to his painful story, even if it is full of darkness. For within that story may lie the key to saving everything one holds dear. So it was with the hunt for Gollum. It was not merely the capture of a prisoner, but an act of hope that kindled the first spark in the coming darkness. Thank you for being with me through all these words. I hope the next time you look upon a map of Middle-earth, your gaze will rest for a moment on the Dead Marshes, and in your ears you will hear the echo of that quiet, lonely pursuit. Until we meet again among the shelves of the Royal Library. Thank you, dear wanderers, for staying with me until the end of this tale. What do you think of this story? Did the fate of Gollum, Aragorn, and the Old Librarian stir something within you as well? If you enjoyed this journey through the shadows and light of Middle-earth, please leave a like and subscribe so you won't miss the next forgotten story from the archives of Arda. In the next episode, we shall open another ancient book and perhaps uncover something even Gandalf chose not to speak of. Until we meet again, my friends, in the glow of candlelight and the whisper of old parchment.